Hi, I'm Kyle Willie. We're here at the Artist Gallery in Lambertville, and we have three of the artists that are now showing at Ficus in the Autumn Salon, and we are surrounded by their artwork, and I'll allow them to do their own introductions.
I'm Beatrice Bork. I'm an animal artist. I specialize in watercolor.
I'm Heather Barros. I work in oil and pastel. The small ones I do outside on plein air, and larger ones from pictures and imagination.
I'm Laura Rutherford Renner. I work in oil and primarily on wood.
Beatrice, we could start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about where you get your inspiration when you're painting?
I get my inspiration basically anywhere I go. I think the most important part for me is to stay open. I love to hike. I love to just look around any place I go. I look for wildlife and animals, dogs, birds mostly, any wildlife.
Was there a time in your life where you said, this is for me? I really would like to paint things from nature.
I was always interested in nature since a child, so if art was always something I was interested in, and it was a natural progression that if I'm going to do art, I'm going to do animals and wildlife. So that was an easy choice for me. As a child, even going into high school, I would come home from school, spend time outdoors, looking at nature. I would sit in a tree. I remember watching a group of turkeys go by. That kind of thing really intrigued me.
Where did you grow up that you had turkeys?
I grew up in Hunter County.
Okay.
And we lived near a farm, and I spent a lot of time just walking. I found a fox walking around. I followed him, and I saw the fox cubs in their den from a distance. And I used to do all that kind of thing. And then I would go home and draw what I saw and paint, and then it just developed from there. In high school, I sold my first piece and realized I could make some money.
What was that first piece?
It was a bird.
Yeah.
I don't really remember what bird it was, but that was the start. And that's when I realized there was actually a possibility of making a living doing this. And then I got into the Teen Arts Festival and some other programs. And from there, just snowballed basically. I did some graphic design, which I still do occasionally, but basically I've been a full-time fine artist, I would say, since the early 1990s.
Yeah, I feel like I could take a zoom camera and just zoom right into your artwork and see every little hair and feather and detail. What is it that makes you zoom in and see those fine details so closely?
I love the animals, so for me, by doing that, I get to learn more about them. I study them, I see more, I learn a lot as I'm painting, and that all is very satisfying to me. But I don't really like to concentrate on just the animal. I like a scene. Most of my paintings are scenes that I've seen that reminded me of something else, that spurred on a symbolic thought process or something humorous. Like as in a piece I have in Ficus, I have a house finch on a fence post, and I saw it and observed it just looking around. And a few days before that, I saw some children blowing bubbles, and it kind of combined into this painting idea in my mind. And I was at that moment, this is the next painting. So then I compiled my research and created the piece.
Yeah, this has further brought you to the point of being recognized. Can you tell us about some of the recognition that you've had over the years?
Sure. One of my first accomplishments was getting into the Society of Animal Artists. It's an international organization that supports and promotes wildlife art, specifically animal art. It's a wonderful organization to be in. I was able to get into museum shows across the country and other animal-specific venues through them.
And what kind of venues?
The Vivant Museum in Oradell in New Jersey. It's the only animal art museum in New Jersey. And I've had pieces in the Artists for Conservation. That was kind of neat. I was able to show in China once. And a couple of years ago, again, the Society of Animal Artists had a show in England. So yeah, it's really cool. And then across the country in Colorado and California.
Yes, your artwork has definitely traveled across the world.
It
Yeah.
has. It's nice. It's a nice feeling to know that it's appreciated, and more people are able to see it.
Absolutely. And Heather, I know that you had started art collaborations, a group where you taught people of all ages, right?
Yeah, I started with the youngest children, but I picked the name Art Collaborations because for me it's a way to be with other people, to share with other people. So even the youngest children come up with great ideas and inspire me. And as the years went on, I took classes and I moved up age group from little children to middle schoolers, high schoolers, and then adults. And so, yeah, I had a school for 30 years and just retired. And luckily, being able to be part of this gallery, the Artist Gallery. And so,
It seems so timely that once you retired, this opened up another door to coming to the Artist Gallery.
Yeah. And yeah, my inspirations are like with my teaching and my own artwork, everyday objects, the jar, the can, the spoon, the fork, and I love the idea of extraordinary drawing or painting of ordinary objects. And more lately, I've been going more and more outside to paint, especially I guess during COVID, but lots of little plein air paintings.
Right.
And then some bigger, more atmospheric paintings. And then for the latest work that's up in Ficus now, putting kites, geometric kites into my atmosphere.
Yeah, I think we all feel like when we look at those pieces, like we could just grab the string and be able to sway it and move it around. And it seems to have so much movement.
Yeah. You put those kites in a cool place in the gallery because there's a little air vent and the paintings are moving a little.
Oh, really?
It's like no way. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
That's clever.
Yeah, and so when did you have like your first moment where you decided I'm an artist and I have this talent and this passion?
Oh no, just from early childhood I always drew.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I studied geology and
Right.
then from there started to paint some geologic type scenes and recreating the same laws of physics apply to large scale to a small scale, and just having water flow over my paintings with something like pigment moving. They look like tributaries, just or aerial views of the earth. So that was my first work, and then.
And where did your career start in science that brought you into
Yeah,
your art?
geology.
In geology?
Yeah.
And I can see that in so much of your artwork. There's definitely a love for nature and there's movement and as you said in the tributaries.
Yeah, love for the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that teaching has altered or moved your artwork in a way that you may not have anticipated? Or
Yeah, sure, because I've had to be able to teach everything. I've had to work with charcoal. I've had to teach portraits and figures, and I've had to do some pen and ink and watercolor. So yeah, it's really expanded me.
yeah, do you have a favorite medium that you work with?
Well, yeah, so I work in mostly oil, but also pastel.
Okay,
And so they inform each other.
I like that. And Laura, when did your passion for artwork and paintings begin?
It's funny, I was hearing some of the conversation about like when was your first sale and when you started interest in it. And mine, I decided like first year of college, and I was part of an art fair along the Jersey Shore, And that was when I saw my first painting. It was actually a package of open M&Ms. And I'll never forget it. And it was just like moved like really quickly. I was like so happy and proud, you know. I was like, I'm an artist. And I'm just thinking about it, and I haven't really moved too far away from that initial subject, because a lot of the still lifes that I do, or objects, or things that I see every day. You know, I see my cat every day. You know, I happen to pass by the windowsill, and there's just a configuration of stuff that we just put there, and you know, be looking at it, well, I like that, you know.
Right.
So not very often, more often than not, things are just happenstance, and that are attractive to me. When I'm out walking, for instance, you know, I do a lot of images along the river where I take long walks, and that's one of the pieces that's there right now, is waiting for a connection. And there was just a guy on his phone, and it was just like I was walking by, and the light was perfect, and it was wonderful. And I got his permission. I took reference pictures. So I do a lot of pieces like that.
You know, your paintings definitely tell a story where I feel like a lot of people can relate to it and feel like, oh, you know, like the woman in the kayak, or the man fishing alone, and just feeling like those contemplative moments.
Yes.
Does a lot of your artwork, is it inspired by the career that you've had? You said that you just retired recently as an occupational therapist.
Well, the funny thing is, first artist, not making a lot of money, went back to college and earned a degree in occupational therapy, and spent 27 years doing that. At the same time, still doing artwork, just not quite as much. And I would say, being an occupational therapist and working with people, working with fine motor skills and all those types of things, it definitely informed some of the things that I was doing in art. Get back to is that like answer that question?
It does, yeah. I guess, like, as I look at each of your paintings, like I do feel like I could transport myself and place myself in that kayak, or have a moment, whether it's fishing or just standing alone and having time to think. Do you tend to come up with a story when you see somebody alone and enjoying nature?
Not necessarily. I usually like the scene, and I usually introduce myself. Like, a lot of those things are, I take several reference pictures, and it'd be really weird if I'm just taking reference pictures and running away, you know,
Right.
of people. So I usually introduce myself, and I kind of find out a mini backstory, or not. You know, sometimes they don't tell me. Actually, it's a funny story about the waiting for a connection guy. He was on his phone. I approached, and I wasn't sure if he heard me when I was saying, "Hi, I'm an artist. I really like, you know, what I'm seeing here. I wonder if I could take your picture." And I really wasn't sure if he heard me at all. And then all of a sudden, he just put his phone down and turned around and gave me a big cheesy smile. So I was like, "Oh, can you just go back to what you're doing?" And which he did. He just went back on his phone, and I'm pretty sure he's talking to his girlfriend.
Oh, that's
So, but I just, I don't really, I feel like they're creating their own story, you know.
Have you ever had somebody who was in your painting come back and has seen the painting that you created?
You know, no. And I've been looking for that guy, and I have never seen him again. I've never, you know, perhaps it's, I mean, I go around the river 5 times a week at least, you know, and I haven't seen him again.
That would be quite a moment to have the person actually come up and go, "Wait a minute, I think that's me. That's
Yeah,
right."
I know.
I did talk to the artist that day.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, so it's interesting. I don't know what they actually end up feeling about that, but they allow me to take their picture. So.
I don't have that problem with the animals.
Yeah, and like the animal, like, I wouldn't say animal in general. It's the cat. The cat is usually my cat, and Lulu is she's a devil. She's just an awful cat, actually. I mean, like, I love her, but so it's like she's earning her keep because I've sold 90% of the portraits.
There are some mischievous scenes where she's holding on to it like a play mouse or some, or it looks like she's about to pounce.
Oh that's yeah. And actually, that one I had to. I couldn't imagine asking her to sit on the windowsill long enough so what I did was I did a sketch I sketched it on blackboard, and then I cut it out. So basically I made a Lulu cutout, and I put it in the window, and just the right time when the sun came over, it made the shadow. That's how I did
That's a good
that.
idea. Yeah, I wondered how you captured that moment.
Yes. It's a trade secret.
So all of you have been brought together to the Artist Gallery, and you mentioned, Heather, that there are 16 artists that work together. How has that changed your careers or your artwork path?
Oh, it's definitely for the better. I used to be in a gallery in Philadelphia, and she represented like 60 artists, but we were never showing at the same time. We never had meetings where we'd sit and talk, or obviously we talk about business type things when we meet, but I mean, we talk about other things too. And it's just a good, I don't know, I just feel like all the other artists kind of inform myself, about maybe a different technique to use, or just in general admiration. So.
Oh yeah, well, just all of a sudden my artwork was seen and then started selling, so that was huge.
Yeah, the good part about this type of a gallery is because we gallery sit as well. Anyone who comes into the gallery will meet an artist, and that's good for us too, because as Laura said, you have a work in a gallery, and I would never know who purchased my work. There was a disconnect, and here you really get a connection with a buyer or a viewer, and that's a lovely bonus, when you're painting and where your babies end up.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a real draw for me. That intimacy with the purchaser or viewer. Just to hear, just even listening to hear what people say as they go through the gallery is neat.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the same kind of passion we have at Ficus, is to bring people in and allow them to get to know each of you, and have that opening ceremony that we had, and to have like a time where people can talk about the food and the art, but really get to know the artists behind each of the work, and where your passion comes from.
They're more likely to buy your work if they like you.
That's true. You're all likable. I try.
We have the title of the show is the Autumn Salon, as you all know, and it stems back to the original art show that was in the 1800s in Paris, and it brought in artists who were maybe not being recognized out in the public, and they felt like we needed to have an opportunity to share their artwork, and so that it wasn't a juried show also, and that they would allow like more modern artists to come in, and artists who had different ideas rather than the traditional artwork. So for us, it's such a great celebration to have at Ficus, to have all these different styles and have it all work together, though. We have with 4 artists at the Autumn Salon, and your styles are each very different, but there's also a story, I think, behind each of your art pieces. And while your styles might be different, it lends everybody the ability to talk about the different styles that you each have and the stories that are behind them. Do you have a particular moment where you were sharing your artwork with somebody and they saw something that you necessarily don't see in your own artwork, or had not thought about before?
Actually, yeah. Somebody remarked that whenever I do, and this is true, like whenever I do my subjects, they're not turning and facing, the viewer. They're turned away. They're in my thought, it was because they're introspective, but their thought also is that not necessarily sad, but I mean, like, I don't know, it's like, it evoked a mood. And I wasn't, wasn't going for that. I was just, I felt, I wanted to just, when I do people, you know, I like to have them engaged in the activity that they're doing, not so, and then I'm out of the picture. So,
Right.
but it was interesting what they thought.
Yeah, usually when I get somebody who gets a reaction to a piece, it's from their own perspective. I remember reminiscence, kind of memory things. That's always a special moment because they do like to share. And then you get, again, we're here so we can talk about it. But yeah, it's great. It's one of the, like I said, one of the reasons why I really love being in this gallery.
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's poetry to artwork that you can evoke that feeling or have somebody feel kind of like a poetry, you know, song or melody in their heads also that, or a story that they can relate to. Now, you do quite a bit of plein air, Heather. So you're out painting.
Especially since the beginning of COVID, because that's where I taught my classes. That's how I could meet with my friends. We needed to be outside together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have a favorite spot that you'd like to go to, or?
I'm looking for an unrecognizable place. Now I'm looking for a kind of a universal scene so that anybody can feel like, oh, I've been there. I don't know exactly where that was, but I know I've seen that place. There's kind of, I want to go in that direction. I don't want it to be too specific with a certain part of a road sign. I want it to be like, you know, I think I've seen that place.
Yeah, they can relate it to different sceneries.
So looking for that kind of spot
specific to
now.
them. Yeah. And you recently painted the 100-year-old trees at Trujillo's.
Oh yeah, right. We all got out together to paint those old trees. Yeah, but the best ones were the ones that could have been old trees anywhere, actually. No, mine that tried to make it specific to Terry Orchards.
Yeah.
The tent and people there that work there. No. I think the best, the most successful ones were, again, those universal.
Yeah,
old
somebody
trees.
could relate it to a tree that they had seen or walked past.
Yeah.
And Beatrice, where do you get your ideas from, like which animals that you're drawn towards in drawing?
I think I've always been drawn to birds, but I think that's because of their accessibility. You can go anywhere in a city to the jungle and you can see a bird. So that thrill of seeing a new bird that you haven't seen before is kind of exciting, and you can always, you know, I don't keep a list. I'm not a bird.
I was going to ask you if you kept a list.
Only when I go to a place like Trinidad and Tobago, which I've been, where it's a specific place that I've gone, then I do kind of keep a list. But that's not that important. For me, it's I can see a bird that I've seen 1,000 times, and suddenly, see, I don't know where the spark comes from exactly. I just know that you have to be open for it. Like you said, when you just come across a person or subject, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. So that's very important. I've done pieces where I have there was no animal in it, but it reminded me, like when I have to keep this, there was this magnificent tree trunk and I have to do something with it, and you just let it gel. I paint paintings sometimes 2 years after or more that I've seen it, because the spark, it's like a serendipitous moment where you're like, oh, now I know what to do with this. And that's how. So I just keep open.
Yeah.
Keep your mind open.
And keep that file of ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep it. Just let it percolate in my brain. I don't know what I lose in my brain when I'm thinking of ideas. I probably forget most of the important things.
Well, there's so many things in nature that you depict in your paintings, but there's also times where I've seen a column and the fine details that go into the column.
Everything's about, I like texture and exploring texture, so I like doing tree trunks, and then in contrast to something alive. with a bird on it or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun just to explore. Those are themes. I mean, there's a few times where I have an idea with no subject at all in my head. I just think, oh, that would be, I don't know, some idea, some symbolic idea that I would like to explore. And then I'll see something that spurs on the idea, and then I compile, you know, my ideas and sketches, and then I get my resource material. It's a whole process. It's
And looking,
sure.
you know, just behind Laura are two of your pieces, and some you have movement of birds, and others they're still, and a skateboarder going by, and
I like that one.
yeah, I'm picturing the birds just
One of the
moving
few
because
times.
he's coming into the, coming along the way on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a trip to a museum in New York, right across the street from the Whitney, and I was in the bus and I saw the guy on his phone totally oblivious and on a skateboard, which kind of intrigued me a lot. So in the bus taking pictures out the window,
Yeah.
so going up the aisle,
Yeah.
taking pictures, and then,
I know where that is around.
yeah, right, yeah.
Little
and,
island.
and it was I have it every once in a while, I go through my photographs and it kept popping up as something I'd like to explore more, and then all of a sudden you get the idea and
So do you
you
each
have to do it.
make sure that you have your phone or camera handy for that moment?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the phone makes things a lot easier
Does
now.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something that we always have with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no more
Hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
no more film I used to be very careful with my film, you know, you want to get the right shots.
Yeah.
And not when I get film back, especially with birds and
Oh,
people
right,
are moving,
yeah,
and be
it's-
like,
it's
what,
all
I don't know
different.
what this was.
Yeah.
And now I take hundreds and hundreds of photographs when you go anywhere.
And then you can manipulate it the way you want when you're actually painting, you know, using that as your reference. You know, you can just do whatever you want with it.
And before we started filming, we were talking about commissioned artwork and how that changes a little bit, because you may not have the liberty to do exactly the object or scenery that you want to do, but it can challenge you also. Do you have any stories that you could share that where you've been commissioned to do something that has gone a little bit out of your comfort zone or has challenged you a little bit more?
Actually, I just do animals, and
Yeah.
so, I mean,
I did one successfully, but like we had to work from several images because we started with the dog profile, then they wanted the dog in the canoe that they were on. So then I was doing a lot of researching and, you know, trying to make something in my mind or use a reference to make it all work.
Right.
Have the dog in a canoe, and then for the background, another reference picture, and it turned out that the very background was the same dog in the canoe with the owner, but it was there was a little speck, you know, so yeah, that was a challenge.
that's how most of my paintings go. They're always like pieces.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, I gotta get that. And I mean, it wasn't, but it was fun. I was like,
Yeah.
really, it was actually fun. I mean, I had a couple commissions that weren't fun, but I would say by and large, 90%, you know, they already know who I am and what I do. And,
Right.
and they were asking me because they were envisioning something that looked similar to some of my output, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it's so important when somebody's asking you to do artwork for you, for them. It's because they love your artwork and your style.
Right. They weren't asking me to do it like Dolly or somebody.
Right.
They were asking me to do it like I did. So.
And that's nice to be gallery sitting here and have somebody come in like your work. And somebody asked me to do a scene over Villanova College at night from there. I said, oh my goodness, do you have pictures of that? So I never would have painted that scene otherwise.
Right.
And one of ski slopes. And maybe the sky wasn't too inspiring from pictures that someone gave me, but I've got such a great catalog of amazing skies. I could put my skies in with somebody else's reference place.
Right.
Yeah.
And alter it a little bit where
Yeah.
it's something that you're familiar with and incorporate that. we are lucky enough to have had this opportunity to talk with Beatrice and Heather and Laura, who are all in the Autumn Salon. And thank you for sharing this information with us about your backgrounds and where your inspiration comes from and where your art has taken you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all and to be able to share it with other people.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
sharing it.